Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I wish you a blessed Ramadan. I hope you benefit from this blessed month the best. I am Yunus Emre Pehlivan and you are watching Let's Think Together, weekly series of discussion of different subjects in Islam. Today's program is about Bismillah, in the name of Allah, which is short for Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. With Bismillah, Muslims mention the name of Allah at the beginning of every good action. It is also the first verse of the first chapter of the Quran. And Bismillah is mentioned 114 times in the Quran. In today's program, we'll talk about the power and the blessing that the Bismillah has. And we will see that actually it is not just the Muslims who say Bismillah, all beings also say it. In our weekly series, we are going to read and discuss different episodes and texts from the Risale authored by Imam Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. We ask Allah to make this program beneficial for everyone. Today, we are going to read the first word. Joining us today are Yusuf Kara from Malaysia. He is one of the representatives of Hayrat Foundation, and he's also the manager of NRTC, Nursi Research and Training Center at the International Islamic University, Malaysia. Welcome.
Thank you,
Brother Yusuf.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. And Talha Akkurt from Turkey. He's a PhD student at Yıldırım Beyazıt University in Ankara, Turkey. Welcome, Brother
Thank
Talha.
you, brother. Welcome again.
Okay, now let me start reading the first word. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillah, in the name of Allah, is the beginning of all goodness. Thus, at the beginning, do we too begin to explain it. O my own lower self, O my nafs, know that this blessed utterance is the symbol of Islam. It is also the invocation of every single thing in existence, expressed through the language of the states of those things. Bismillah, in the name of Allah, has an immense power that is never exhausted and a grace that will never pass away. So let's start with Brother Yusuf Kara. Could you please tell us about this part?
Okay, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to everyone. I also wish all of us a blessed Ramadan, inshallah. May Allah accept our du'as and prayers in this holy month, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lift the calamities that is afflicting all humanity and Muslims across the world. Inshallah, we will be happy, inshallah, to share every week, inshallah, a subject from Bediüzzaman Said Nursi's Rasail al-Nur. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept, inshallah, our tafakkur, our reflection, and our discussions as an act of ibadah. So, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, is the beginning of all goodness. So, in this short paragraph, Bediüzzaman Said Nursi is making an introduction to the meaning of Bismillah. And he says Bismillah is 5 things. Number 1, Bismillah is the beginning of all goodness. So, as we believe, according to our fiqh, we cannot start something that is prohibited with Bismillah. And anything that is started, anything neutral that is started with Bismillah, also will yield auspicious results. So this is how we believe. And also Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, كل أمر ذي بال لا يبدأ فيه ببسم الله فهو أبتر. So every work, every matter, every deed that is started without saying Bismillah will not be auspicious, will be incomplete. So we have to say Bismillah in the good actions that we are doing in order for it to be blessed and auspicious. And secondly, Bismillah is the symbol of Islam, right? according to Bediüzzaman Said Nursi is saying here, this blessed utterance is the symbol of Islam. So symbol of Islam means shi'ar, right? A sign of Islam. So when it is uttered, it reminds about Islam. It declares, it announces Islam, right? It introduces Islam to people. So in this regard, Bismillah is important because whenever we articulate it, we just utter it. So it reminds everyone around us about Islam. And in terms of the symbols of Islam, there are actually numerous sorts. There are wajibat, such as salat, for example. Again, is a symbol of Islam, but it is fard, it is wajib for Muslims. But for example, adhan is also a symbol of Islam, but it is sunnah. So the symbols of Islam there are into different sorts, but they are very important because it declares Islam globally. So everyone has to pay attention to performing and fulfilling these responsibilities. So this is the second meaning of Islam, of Bismillah, according to Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. And thirdly, he says it is also the invocation of every single thing in the universe expressed through the languages of the states of those things. So he says everything actually says Bismillah. Of course, we don't hear them saying Bismillah, but how then? He says through the language of the states of those things. So the way they act, the way they do something will imply that they actually say Bismillah. Okay, so inshallah this will be detailed in this chapter, in the first word. So we leave the detailed discussion to that, inshallah. And of course, we can just quote the ayah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. So there is nothing that does not glorify Allah with praise. So everything actually knows about Allah, and everything praises Allah and glorifies Allah. So we can also relate this sentence of Bediüzzaman Said Nursi to that ayah of the Quran. And fourthly, Bediüzzaman says Bismillah has an immense power, okay, in terms of power. And fifthly, Bismillah is a grace that will never pass away. Okay, so it's a power that is immense, that is never ending, and also it's a grace, right, that will never pass away. So inshallah, in this first word, we will focus on, Bediüzzaman Said Nursi is focusing on, especially on the last three meanings of Bismillah. So last but not least, we can also remember that generally we as Muslims, when we say Bismillah, or when we are, when we think about Bismillah, we think that Bismillah is something that should be uttered when we begin an ibadah or a daily action also, for the purpose of gaining rewards. You know, when we say Bismillah, it means we can gain rewards. Or of course, our work will have barakah, you know, it will be accepted by Allah, it will be helped by Allah. But Bediüzzaman's, you know, understanding of Bismillah and how it focuses on it is really immense and huge. So we should also have that perspective. So we will see at the end of this discussion that Bediüzzaman does not just relate Bismillah to our utterance and our actions, but also to the entire universe. So Bismillah is an actually universally articulated and uttered word that we should all reflect, inshallah we will see, actually in the all actions of the all created beings. So this is how we can, inshallah, may explain shortly the introduction.
Okay, let me start reading this allegory mentioned.
Brother, let me speak a few words about this introduction.
Yes, please.
It is the general, let's say, approach of Bediüzzaman Said Nursi when he starts to discussion. He give a brief summary. Let's say it's an abstract about telling about what is coming up. So in this short paragraph, we see 5 strong phrases that Yusuf brother mentioned. These 5 elements shows us that Bediüzzaman Said Nursi will explain detailedly in coming up paragraphs. So we can understand this first paragraph as a, let's say, brief abstract of the whole text.
Okay. Okay. Shall I continue with the
Okay.
allegory?
Okay.
Yeah. If you wish to understand this, then direct your attention to this short allegory. Listen. Any man traveling through the deserts of Arab Bedouin must affiliate himself, seeking protection, with the chieftain of a tribe, both in order to ensure that all of his needs are fulfilled and so that he is saved from the mischief of bandits. Otherwise, he would have to face his endless enemies and needs, distress because wretchedly alone. On such a journey, two men set out to the desert, one of them a humble man and the other deeply conceited. The humble man immediately affiliated himself with a chieftain, but the conceited man refused to do so. The affiliated man roamed freely. He was in perfect security wheresoever he should choose to go. If he encountered a bandit, he would say, "I am journeying in the name of chieftain so and so," at which the thug would turn away, unable to touch him. Due to the grace of that name, he would find honor, whichever tent he might enter. The conceited man, on the other hand, endured unspeakable tribulations throughout his whole journey, constantly trembling and constantly having to plead for himself. He ended up wretched and degraded. So this part is the allegory part. Now the reality part will come. Do you have anything to add here before we start the reality part?
I think we should read the reality part, then we can discuss and we can talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Let me continue.
Maybe,
yes, please.
If you don't mind, maybe you can just summarize, with our simple words, what is mentioned here.
Yeah.
Quickly, inshallah.
Yeah. Let me rephrase it. So we have two men traveling through the deserts of Arab Bedouin. So in the desert, when you travel alone, there is the possibility of trouble. So one of these two men got the name of a chieftain of a tribe. So he affiliated himself with a chieftain. But the other one said, "No, I can travel myself. I don't need any name to travel." So now we'll see the difference between the one who affiliated himself with a chieftain of a tribe, the one who didn't affiliate himself. So the affiliated man traveled safely, even if he encountered any danger due to a bandit or thieves. He would say that, "I am traveling with the affiliation of this chieftain, so and so." So those people in the desert, the bandits, would not touch him. And if he comes to a tent, they will respect him due to the name of the chieftain. But the other one, he didn't take the name. He didn't affiliate himself with any chieftain. So during his journey, he was all alone. So he had to travel in fear. When he encountered any trouble, he couldn't take any protection from any chieftain because he refused in the beginning. So that's the main difference. Okay, let me continue with the reality part. O conceited lower self, you are that traveler. O nafs, you are that traveler, and this world is that desert. There is no limit to your powerlessness and poverty, and there's no end to your enemies and your needs. This being so, affiliate yourself with the endless owner and the beginningless ruler of this desert, so that you can be free from having to beg from created beings and free from fear of every event. Yeah, before I continue, can I have your opinions about this part, please?
Let me say a few words. Actually, to me, the basic essence of this, let's say, allegory is, if you are alone with numerous enemies and too many needs that shouldn't be satisfied on your own, the only thing you need to do is to stand with someone who is strongest, who is strong enough to defeat your enemies, and who is wealthy enough to satisfy your needs. Otherwise, you will be miserable in your travel. So the essence of the allegory says that if humankind do not stand with Allah and do not, let's say, trust to Allah and to its power and wealth, in this case, he has to satisfy all of his needs without help of Allah, and he has to defeat all of his enemies without help of Allah. We are saying that without help of Allah, because when you say that I don't need you, let's say, without saying Bismillah or without starting with Bismillah, you implicitly say that I don't need the help of you. In this case, you have to satisfy all of your needs and defeat all of your enemies. But we know that we are too many enemies. The important point is that maybe I differ the point, but I think it is important. The point that make all entities enemy or friend is our point of view. If our point of view is in this way, all of these entities are ibadullah. Let's say they are all serving for Allah. In this case, as another servant of Allah, all of these servants are our friends. Otherwise, we see all of these entities as enemies. It is a very famous, let's say, phrase from the Marx. He says that the world is the place where the fittest can survive. This means that all entities are an enemy to each other. I think the point, what makes these entities friend rather than enemy, is their, let's say, their connection with Allah. If they are connected to Allah, then they become friends. If we see them as friends, this means that Allah's words and Allah's salam, let's say, Allah's gratitude and Allah's greetings will be accepted by them. In this case, if we act on behalf of Allah, in the name of Allah, then everything will be okay for us. So the essence of the allegory is our standing with Allah's power and Allah's wealth. Otherwise, we will be miserable in this universe.
Thank you. Brother Yusuf, what is your opinion on this part?
Yes, we have just listened to an allegory that has some figures inside, and then it refers to the reality. So as you mentioned, and as Brother Talha also referred to, in the allegory there are actually some figures that are, for example, the world, the traveler, right, and the needs, of that person, and the needs and enemies of that person. So these things have, in the allegory there is, number one, the traveler, and secondly, the desert, right? The needs and the enemies in the desert. And third is the chieftain of the tribe, of any tribe. So these things are actually related to something in reality that Bediüzzaman is trying to make us understand. So in reality, Bediüzzaman Said Nursi says here that we are the traveler. Our nafs is that traveler. So ourselves, we are the traveler in this world that is the desert in the allegory. So we are the traveler in our desert, that is the world. And who is the chieftain of this desert? Who is the chieftain of this world? It is, of course, Allah Rabbul Alameen. So we also, just like in the example, if that person didn't take the protection of a tribe leader, right, of a chieftain, of a tribe that is actually ruling over the desert. So he will have two problems. One, and these are two main things of a human being. One, needs, and second one is the enemies. In terms of enemies, by the way, the allegory is very meaningful because desert is very dangerous place. There are bandits, thugs, and also there are even, for example, under every seed, under any sand, sorry, in a desert, you might have, for example, a small insect, right? That again can harm you, or it's very, hot, etc. So it's very dangerous in so many ways. So you have to have a protection. You cannot be alone traveling in security. And secondly, you have a lot of needs, right? Shelter, food, drink, etc. So for which again you have to depend on a power that is powerful than you and ruling over the desert. So in our case, we are just again the two characteristics of the traveler is very important for us. Number one, our ajz, right? Our powerlessness, as Bediüzzaman Said is referring to here, our powerlessness and our poverty, right? So we have a lot of needs, we have a lot of enemies, but we are weak to protect ourselves against or to confront these enemies. We are endlessly weak. And secondly, we have a lot of needs, but we are endlessly poor. Actually, these two terms we should understand in order to be able to understand the allegory and the reality here. Basically, the ajz and faqr in Arabic and powerlessness and poverty in English. So how we should understand that? First, we have endless powerlessness. We have an endless powerlessness. It means we don't have any power that is innate, that we really own it. The power comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one that creates us, and He is the one that creates our actions, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. And secondly, again, for example, there is an instant that happened. Prophet Muhammad was in a masjid, and there was a mushrik behind him who just took his sword to kill him. And then he said, now, O Muhammad, who is going to save you? Then he said, Allah. Prophet Muhammad said, Allah will save me, right? He will protect me. And then the guy just, raised his hand to just, kill him, but he couldn't move his hand, So it means the power, which is a very easy action, just, moving your hand. This is the easiest action, right, on earth. We always move our hands to do something. And we never care that, we think it's very automatic. He couldn't do that. In a moment that Prophet ﷺ was very, unsecure, right? In a condition that he was quite unsecure and he would die easily. And he had a weapon in his hand, but he couldn't move his hand. So it means we don't own, right, our power. So we are endlessly powerless. We just have a will, right, an irada that we use, right, that we just want from Allah. And Allah creates our actions. Allah is Qadir, so Allah creates it. And secondly, and we have a lot of enemies. So how we are going to protect ourselves from those enemies? Like a virus, for example, nowadays, an unseen virus can just bring down people, So we can protect ourselves from a bunch of virus that's just all across the globe right now, but we cannot protect ourselves from it. And secondly, again, the faqr, the poverty of human being, that is also endless. Why? Because we have endless needs. We have endless needs. For example, we want to live eternally. We never want to, cease to exist. We always want to live eternally. If someone tells us, would you like to live, for example, 1 billion years? Wow, 1 billion years is quite much, quite a long time. So maybe that would be enough. Okay, suppose that we have lived 1 billion years and today is the last day of 1 billion years. Okay, if you are asked, are you ready? Of course I'm not. I still want to continue to live, right? To take pleasure from this life. I don't want to depart my friends and families here. So another 1 billion, another 1 billion. When we come to the last day, we will never want to leave the world, right? We will never want to go to annihilation. we will continue. We want to continue to exist. So there is an eternal place of existence that is akhirah. So for which actually we have this need of living eternally. So we have many other needs. For example, we imagine so many things. When we imagine something, that imagination becomes a desire, to find it, to discover it, to have it, and that desire becomes a need. So we have endless imagination and endless needs, endless desires and endless needs, finally. So who is going to fulfill our needs? Of course, not us. Again, we don't have anything. It is, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why we have to rely and trust on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to fulfill our needs and in order to secure ourselves from our enemies. And this is only through relying on the ruler of the desert, of the earth, of the world, inshallah.
Okay. Let me read more here. Yes, this phrase is such a blessed treasure that through it, your limitless powerlessness and poverty bind you to endless power and mercy. And thus, do powerlessness and poverty become truly valid intercessors for you at the door of the Almighty, the Compassionate, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think you also mentioned this in your speech. So our powerlessness and poverty become valid and truly valid intercessors for us in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, the one who acts saying this phrase, Bismillah, is like someone who enters military service and thereby acts in the name of the state. He fears no one, for he speaks in the name of the state and of the law. He accomplishes everything, and he can withstand anything. At the beginning, yeah. So there's this another example of soldiers. Brother Talha, can you open this a little bit?
The example of soldier or
yes,
the previous paragraph. I think I have a short comment for the previous paragraph. I think it's
please share with us.
Important. The point is that the question is, are we really poor and weak? Suppose that someone says that someone may say that I am the richest person in the world, so I can buy everything that I want, and some other guy may also say that I am the strongest people in the world, so no one can beat me. So in this case, can we say that you are still limitless powerlessness and poverty? In this case, I think we should we approach this question in this way: Are we really rich? For example, Allah said that in Quran, if I take your water, who will give you water? We are let's say we are comparing our needs that we see in the world, so that I have money that I can buy everything, but if there is someone that cannot be bought by money, for example, let's think about water and air, fresh air. How much money that let's say a bunch of air costs? The answer is nothing. Nothing means that there is no wealth can buy air or water. We see that let me think simple. We also can say that we have money, go to shop and take a glass of water, but we are thinking about that creation of a water. If Allah does not create air and didn't create the water, and we have to beneath and drink water to survive in the world, so this means that we also still, yes, we really poor and weak against our even against our basic needs. If Allah does not give us water or fresh air, we cannot beneath or we cannot drink water. This means that we are really weak and poor against our indefinite amount of needs. This important, the example of soldier than you explain us is that he briefly explain us how one people can use the power that he doesn't have. The essence of this example is that at the beginning of the letter, Ustad says that every kind says Bismillah with their own languages. But how? We can understand humankind because of their language. But for example, what about animals or let's say vegetables or other things? The point that we can differentiate their language is that their doings. I mean that if someone achieves something that cannot be achieved by his own power. Actually, this example of soldier clearly explain and prove this kind, because a single soldier can mobilize all inhabitants of the city from one place to another place. Normally, a few people can defeat them. But when he says that in the name of state and in the name of law, I say you stop. For example, think about the border gates, physical border gates of the states. There are hundreds of people waiting to enter a country, and there are very few officers that give them permission to enter. Normally, a few people can defeat that police guy and can enter to the state, but they do not do this. Why? Because they all know that this policeman, that soldier or that officer acts in the name of the state. This means that he has not only his own physical power, he also has the power of a strong state. This means that if you let's say defeat that officer and let's say don't listen his words, yes, you can do that, but in this case you have to face the strong power of whole state. So the case, the essence, or the importance that why a single soldier can mobilize whole inhabitants of the city, or one a simple officer can stop all inhabitants. This is because of the fact that he acts on behalf of the state. So this means that he has the power, not only his own power, physical power, but also he's representing, and he feels the whole strength of the state. So the example of soldier actually clearly explain the relationship between how this power and action relation importance. Another important point, what this example explain us, or think another way, why Ustad gave this example for the example of Bismillah, because we see that how we can understand let's say an animal say Bismillah.
Brother Talha, can I read the following part? I think there will be mentioning that example.
Okay.
Yeah, let me continue there, and I will ask you again. It is in a similar way that all existent beings act in the name of Allah. The very minutest particle like seeds and stones bear gigantic trees above their heads and hold up mountainous burdens. Thus, do all trees say Bismillah in the name of Allah and fill their hands with fruits from the treasure of mercy. They present these fruits to us, just as a street vendor displays his goods. Every garden says Bismillah in the name of Allah, and becomes one of the cauldrons of kitchen of divine power, in which diverse types of delectable foods are together cooked in abundance. Yeah, here it says every plant, every garden say also Bismillah. What can you tell me about this, Brother Talha? I think you were about to mention this. Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, I beautifully explained that. We can understand how these, let's say, vegetables, these animals, or the, other kinds say Bismillah. We see their sayings in their doings. This means that if they are doing something that cannot be done but their own with their own power, then this means that there is another kind of power and that they are using. This is Bismillah. When let's rethink about this example of soldier, he says that in the name of state, stop or come. This means that you are not afraid from my physical power, but you have to afraid from the power of the state. Or in this coming to these examples, we see that a cow gives us milk. How? He eats grants and give us pure beneficiary thing for our health. How can a cow can do that? If he acts in the name of Allah, then it can do that. So we can understand how these other kinds from humankind say Allah. We analyze their things from their doings. It's okay now.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to ask a question to Brother Yusuf here. In the following part, Imam Nursi mentions these green leaves. Yeah, let me read that part. The way green leaves, fine and delicate, stay moist for months, despite the blight of extreme heat. And all the other examples also constitutes a real slap in the mouth for the naturalists, and pokes a finger into their eyes, saying all the while, even hardness and heat upon which you so much rely act through the divine command. For these rootlets, though delicate and silk-like, break apart rocks, thereby obeying, like the staff of Moses alayhi salam, the divine command, idrib bi'athak al-hajar. Leaves, yeah, so they act with this divine command, which means strike the rock with your staff. And also they recite the verse, Ya naru kuni barda wa salama. This means, O fire, be coolness and peace. And they recite this verse to the burning heat, just as did the limbs of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So, Brother Yusuf, can you please explain this part to us?
Okay, inshallah. Of course, Bediüzzaman Said Nursi just gave several examples from the humanity and the world of human beings, and from the animal kingdom, and from the plants as well. So in all of them, he showed how relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is impactful, is needed. And now he is attracting our attentions to another detail in this regard. He says the spreading of the roots, for example, the leaves, they can just stretch and grow easily. The branches and the leaves, they can just grow very easily up in the air, because there is no blockade, right? So they can grow, seemingly easily. But we also see the same kind of the branches within the earth, that is the rootlets, but they are very delicate and tiny that you can crush very easily. They can also, as if up in the open air, they can also very easily just stretch and go around, right? Under the earth. But actually, there are hard rock and earth down in the soil. So how these delicate, tiny beings can pierce through hard rock and earth and can still, grow and stretch, throughout, around the trunk and the root of the tree. So this is something that actually something soft is challenging and defeating something hard. This is against the rule of naturalists, because in naturalism it is the fittest wins, the strongest the weak. So this is how especially the causes works. For example, if there is a strong cause, it will defeat the weak one. The weak one, can never defeat the strong one. Of course, the scientists there is a technical explanation of this rootlets, how they can pierce through hard rock and earth. Even we sometimes see that a small plant just grown and blossomed, coming through a rock. Subhanallah, we see that, isn't it? In many times. So they say that the rootlets, they just release a certain type of acid and a certain type of acid. So with this one, it can just pierce through. This acid is impactful on the rock, on the earth, through which it is it can go. But then we ask the question, okay, this is an explanation. So now, okay, this is how it goes. So there is nothing that can be unexplained. This is how they want us to say. But we also ask them a question. Where did this rootlet learn, how to produce that acid? Or which type of acid? Or in which amount it should produce? Where it learned? Did it attend a university? Did it read the books? Or how it gained that material to produce that? It's just staying over there. If the material is not ready with him, he cannot use it and he cannot produce that acid. So all of these things are actually prepared by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he doesn't know it, but he is made to do so. He was made to release that acid, and through which he can pierce through hard rock and earth. So it is just a slap on the mouth of the naturalists. And secondly, the green leaves, again, they are fine and delicate and they have moisture, but they're standing for months, at the blight, under the blight of the sun. But when we go out, we just become dark in a few minutes, right? We just go dehydrated, in a few minutes, or we have headache, etc., in a few minutes, right, outside under the blight of the sun. So how it happens that something weak, can stay moisture for months under and that is also the part of another dry being, that is the tree, and the tree also is part of another dry substance, that is the earth, right? Subhanallah, this is, normally, under normal conditions, it shouldn't be able to protect itself. It is only through the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah is commanding it and is making it preserve, like for example, we have some money, but we're not able to maintain our livelihood economically, right? And we are conscious beings. We are studying, the departments of economy, etc. But still, we are not able to save money and make it till the end of the month, for example, let's say. And how it happens that something dry, something which doesn't have almost any water, can still keep a little bit water and can maintain its moist, for months under the blight of the sun. So this is something quite incredible, and this can only happen through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose command is over everything, over the sun, over the soil, over the tree, and over the leaves. This is what I can say. And also, Bediüzzaman Zaman is giving, maybe I can leave it to Brother Talha to further focus, inshallah, on this, related to the ayat, inshallah, so as not to prolong.
Thank you, brother. I want to come back to previous question that Yunus Emre brother explained. Ustad said that in this phrase, there are two things that naturalists are most trustful about them. This means that Ustad says that let me speak. Let me reach from there. He said that even hardness and heat, upon which you much rely, act through a divine command. Actually, there is 2 points in this case, in this phrase. One, why hardness and heat are the most trustful tools for naturalists, and the second point is that how these most trustful tools obey the orders of Allah. If we come back to first point, Ustad said that hardness and heat are the most, let's say, the most trustful, or the point that rely on. Why and how? Why these naturalists rely on these 2 sources? I think there are 2 important things. For example, if we think about the heat, fire, the basic element and basic characteristics of the fire is the capability to invade. If we think this way, if a fire starts from to burn, then he's invade all of the things and burn everything. So this means that it seems that no one can stop for his invasion. Its invasion. And another point, and hardness. We think that, for example, we use the synonym to explain the hardness, that as strong as steel, çelik, iron, steel. So this means that this is also another important point, because this strength and this let's say hardness symbolizes not to be beaten. This means that capability to invasion. This means that they are acting on their own. So that it seems that hardness, because of their solidity and power, strength, and heat, fire, because of their ability to invade, because of these 2 elements, naturalists thinks that they are acting on their own. But Ustad said that even hardness and heat, they are also acting let's say in line with the orders of Allah. In this case, we see 2 examples for each of them. For example, for the hardness, Ustad gives us 2 examples. One from a miracle from the life of Musa alayhi salam, and from a real life, from the reality. He said that when Moses came to Red Sea, he touched his stick to the earth, and he opened gate with the says that فَضْرِبْ بِعَصَاكَ الْحَجَرِ. This means that if Allah say the stone to be opened or to release, then then it obeys the order of Allah and gave way to Musa. We know that it's a miracle of Musa alayhi salam, as explained in the Quran. But we believe that every miracle of a prophet can be found in the real life. Ustad also gives the example of this kind of real life. He gives us how a root, a very weak root, can pass through the rock. Normally, we cannot destroy a rock without their strong machines, but a very weak root passes through the rock. This means that if Allah says the rock, similar to Musa alayhi salam's example, give him opportunity to pass through, then we see that that root passes through the rocks. And with regard to example of fire, heat, we also two examples from one from the miracle of Ibrahim alayhis salam and one from the real life. With regard to Ibrahim alayhis salam, we know that when Nemrut throw Hazreti Ibrahim to fire, Allah said to the fire, Ya naru kuni berden ve selam ala Ibrahim. Yani meaning, oh fire, do not burn Ibrahim. Then we see that we saw that fire didn't burn Ibrahim alayhis salam. Similarly, normally, if we stay a few hours in the daylight, we said that we are too tired and thirst, and we are really exhausted. But we saw that there are some trees and vegetables. They are staying in the earth for the months under the sun, but they are still alive and fresh and green. This means that if Allah set those sun and heat do not burn these vegetables, then we saw that yes, they obey the orders of Allah, and they don't touch upon them. So I'm just summarizing these two examples for two most trustful tools of the naturalists. We also understand from the sayings of Ustad, they are also obeying the orders of Allah. So everything is acting actually in the name of Allah.
Yeah, thank you. So in
maybe, Go on, please.
in the last part of this first word, there's a question Imam Nursi mentions. Let me ask this question to Brother Yusuf. We have just 8 minutes left.
Can I just add one sentence before the question? As a conclusion for the previous discussion.
Right.
So after that, Bediüzzaman Said Nursi says, everything is acting in the name of Allah, right? Giving us the things in the name of Allah. So we should also act in the name of Allah. If the plants, animals, they are acting in the name of Allah, saying Bismillah and relying on the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their actions, and they produce those products and they give them to us, saying the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we also, conscious beings, we should also remember Allah when we are receiving them from them. And we shall not take from the ghafil, from the heedless people who don't give in the name of Allah. Or, again, Bediüzzaman says in another part of the Rasail Nur, if we have to take them from those heedless people who don't utter the name of Allah when they're giving them to us, we should at least see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above them. That is actually the true giver of that bounty, and we should take it again ourselves, saying Bismillah from those people. So Bismillah actually encompasses everything, the whole universe. Everything acts in the name of Allah and gives us in the name of Allah. So we should also increase our utterances of Bismillah. We should also say when we take anything from the nature, right, from the causes through which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is creating the things, we should also remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, consciously remembering that it is actually Allah that is giving these things to us.
Thank you. So the final question is, to those who have no greater role than simply displaying merchandise, that means the markets, supermarkets, or street vendors, they are actually a means to the blessings of Allah, but still we pay a price to them. So what price does Allah ask? Allah, the true owner of all goods, the true owner of everything. What price does Allah want from us? Can you please tell us this, Brother Yusuf?
Maybe we can read the answer also from Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, then we can
Okay,
elaborate?
let me read it. The answer, yes, in return for these precious benefactions and goods, the true benefactor asks three things of us. Three things. The first, remembrance of Allah. The second, gratitude to Him. And third, contemplation. At the beginning, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, is remembrance. At the end, Alhamdulillah, all praise is due to Allah, is gratitude. And in between there lies one's thinking and understanding that these blessings are each precious and artistic wonders and are miracles of the power of the singular, the independent and eternal episode, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a gift of His mercy. This is contemplation, tefekkür.
Okay. So in this part, Bediüzzaman is moving to another aspect of our discussion of the topic. And he says, to those who just sell merchandise and sell the products to us, so we pay a price for them. So are we done? Did we pay for the price? And can we now eat it? He says, of course not. We didn't pay yet. We just paid for the merchant, right? For the sellers. But we didn't pay for the true giver of those products. So we paid for what? We paid for example, let's say 1 kg of, for example, orange. And we paid how much? For example, let's say 5 Turkish liras we paid. So we pay this money actually for, number one, the implantation, in the fields, and then for watering, the farmers are doing this, and then for harvesting, right? And then there comes the second stage, that is the person that is buying from the farmer, right? And then that is transporting it, that is storing it, that is packaging it, and also presenting it to us, right? So we pay for all these processes, for example, 5 Turkish liras, right? And also he's getting some extra money. So, okay, we paid for him. This is very nice, calculation and everything is done. But we just paid, very little thing, and to the apparent sellers and apparent providers. But the true provider, the true benefactor is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what does He want? He wants 3 things for the ni'am, for the bounties. Number 1 is dhikr. Number 2 is shukr. Number 3 is fikr. So the first one is to say Bismillah, to remember. When we take anything, to remember that this is from Allah. Right, to remember it. When we eat something, when we take something, we say Bismillah. When we eat it, after eating it, we say Alhamdulillah. We, offer our thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And while eating, you see, what we have to do for Allah, encompasses all, stages of eating. Before eating, after eating, and while eating. So while eating, what we should do, we should think now about something. 2 things. About that, this is a miracle of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a miraculous product that can only be possible through the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty. And second, this has come from the treasures of mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a grace of the treasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is never ending. So again, there are 2 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are reflecting here, and Bediüzzaman is just, in the whole, this first word, he is focusing on 2 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One is Qadir, Al-Qadir, and one is Ar-Rahim, right? With Qadir, we are powerless. If we have to just come from the beginning quickly, we are powerless, we have enemies. So we have to depend and rely on Al-Qadir. We have so many needs, but we are poor, so we have to depend and rely on Allah, who is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. So again, any product that we buy and eat is a product of the miraculousness, right? Of the miracle of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is a grace that comes from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for which we should be we should remember Allah, we should thank Allah, and while eating, we should remember, these 2 points. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Brother Talha, do you have anything to add here?
At this point, no. I think it's very clear from our Yusuf brothers' explanations.
Okay. So if you don't have anything else to add, I think we can finish here today. All right. So I can
Maybe
just say, yeah,
we can
please.
just add the last point. So Bediüzzaman is giving just a further one more fact here. He says, if someone comes, if for example, let's say the president of our country is sending us a gift, and he's sending it through a postman, right? So we thank the postman, who is poor, wretched person. We thank him, we give him tip, etc., whatever necessary. But then we forget to recognize, to acknowledge and thank the true sender of that gift. So that would be quite fool, isn't it? Quite foolish. So since this is quite foolish, so now let's compare this to something else. That is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending us gifts from His qudra, from His rahmah, right? From His power and from His mercy. The products of qudra and mercy and rahmah is coming to us through means, right? Through causes in the nature, through people in the world. So we just thank those sellers, merchants, and if we don't recognize and thank the true giver, so that would be 100,000 times more foolish than the first example. And this is why, as maybe we can just read the last sentence of Bediüzzaman Said Nursi in the first word. O lower self, if you wish to avoid being such a fool, then give in the name of Allah, and take in the name of Allah, and begin in the name of Allah, and act in the name of Allah. Wassalam.
Yeah. So if I may conclude, we can say, saying Bismillah binds man to a power and mercy that are limitless. So that's all for today's program. Thank you for coming here, joining us, Brother Yusuf and Brother Talha. And I hope this program benefits us, all of us, all together. And thank you for watching us today. I hope to see you next week in our next program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Aleykümselam.